Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Political Vigilante. We are here with monthly video interview supporter at the $25 Skype level, Mitchell Heldt. Mitchell, how are you, my friend?
Hello. Well, over the past week, I had talked with Graham about talking about what I'm concerned about the potential for climate refugees within the United States within the next 20 years. And when I say within 20 years, that is going to not be all on the 20th year, but it's going to start coming as more and more people get concerned. The first people to move will probably be the ones that are better off. So, Graham, how do we want to start this?
Well, I mean, let's just talk about that a little bit. I know you were trying to find some more conclusive evidence, but just basically we can touch sort of the broad strokes of what you're seeing in the middle of the country that's happening. So you were saying Berkshire Hathaway is buying up a bunch of real estate?
Yes, a lot of rental units are being purchased or at least managed through Berkshire Hathaway. And what my initial hypothesis was that if climate refugees were starting to flow to the center of the United States, the really wealthy real estate investors would be showing it by purchasing a large amount of rental units in the central states. So thinking that people are going to move here and that they would suddenly become renters, because if there's nothing to buy, people have to rent. Right. And so when I looked at, Miami doesn't have really good predictions for the next 20 years.
Right.
Over the next 20 years, southern half of Florida, what isn't underwater is going to be constantly flooded, right, or hit by storms. And that's true of most of the other areas. Now, we don't want to give everything away because NOAA is trying to give us information. And they're throttled back on what they're allowed to say. Well, they are not.
What NOAA is for people who don't know what that is.
NOAA is the National Oceanic, National Ocean and Air.
I'll look up the acronym.
Agency, but it is the federal department in charge of weather. So. I view their data as very.
It is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. It is part of the U.S. Department of Commerce. And if you go to NOAA.gov, you can go directly to their website.
Given the current directives of not mentioning climate change, not mentioning global warming, any data that you see on a site like this, these people are heroes for publishing it. Right. Not only that, but I would expect that any data that they are publishing is extremely conservative, very well vetted, very well provable.
Because they're not really allowed to say climate change, correct?
That's right. So any amount of, now they're not saying sea level rise, they're now saying inundation.
Wow.
That's the new code word for us, is pack it up and move inland. And they have published new inundation forecasts for 5, 10, 15, 20, and 40 years out, as well as out through the century. And is it okay to go ahead and share?
Yeah, please.
Anyway, my hypothesis was completely blown because of the first step of getting a hypothesis is gathering data that you trust.
Right.
And so are you seeing it? Yeah, okay. This is the inundation map 2020 or 2040 for New York City.
This is New York City.
Manhattan. Okay. We're centered almost just a little bit to the right of Manhattan. The areas that are in light blue are inundated areas. These are areas that are no longer going to be above the surface.
Wow.
Now, this area, just because it's not in the inundation area, doesn't mean you're not going to be seeing a massive amount of flooding.
Yeah, because if you look closely here, so this is South Oyster Bay, this is Jamaica Bay. These are all the light blue areas that you're talking about here. You see it at a lot of these ports just around Manhattan and in Jersey here. So you're saying all of this light, anywhere there's light blue is where it's going to be completely flooded or underwater. Staten Island looks flooded, and then you're saying, but of course, that's just going to create more flooding inland. Correct?
Right. And the storms are getting more severe along with this. They have a common relationship. It's not that one's causing the other. But what really concerned me was, and this is just 2040. So what really concerned me was when I go up the Hudson and I'm showing inundation way up the Hudson. All the way to Albany, we're seeing in 2040 that the river coastline is inundated. So you're going to see areas near the river flood every year to the point where people are going to get aggravated and move. So the real estate we're talking about, this goes right up to the Sarasota, at halfway up into New York.
I mean, when you broaden out here, I mean, this is pretty staggering because you have all of this Atlantic City all along the eastern seaboard is light blue. I mean, all of it.
Yes.
And then when you say, and this, what's happening up here up the Hudson, this is just one place because again, you go into Pennsylvania, it looks like it could affect Pennsylvania. It's going in all the way into New Jersey.
Yeah. I'm not saying that these cities will be completely unlivable. But a majority of the part that's affordable to the average person, probably yes. And if you look at that, that's Philadelphia, New York, Rhode Island, Providence, Connecticut, New Haven, New London, Stamford, Greenwich. We're talking about a serious change in the lifestyle of all of these areas.
And these are massive cities. I mean, this is tens of millions of people along this area. I mean, that's the other thing too that we need to. People haven't even considered is even if it is above water, and we'll get into this Texas map in a second. The flooding is crazy. It causes damages. It knocks out the electricity. There is sanitary. It's an environmental risk depending on what's getting flooded. I mean, it's unreal. And so now we're looking at Florida.
Florida is scratched out. It's just like, oh, just forget it.
So this will be completely underwater, they're saying, by 2040.
This is underwater or inundated. And this area here, inundated. The flooding will be so constant, it's going to be hard to tell if it's underwater or above. And so Orlando looks like it's okay in 2040. So you can still go to Disneyland for a few years. But you're looking at very populated cities along here.
Well, I mean, this South Florida is immensely populated. And then when you pull out here, it just looks like all New Orleans and the entire Gulf.
Yes, we lose the entire seacoast from Corpus Christi all the way to Bay of Fundy. Now, you could tell right here, the wealthiest people are going to be leaving first.
Sure.
The area in here is devastated. They've got the area chalked out along the coastline. It's huge. And if you zoom in on the cities of those, Mobile, Pensacola, Gulfport, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, why are we putting another dollar into New Orleans? But all these areas are just already basically gone. And we've already seen major flooding once in Houston. This year's, and we've hardly even gotten into the storms this year. NOAA has also released and I don't have that one up, but I just wanted to show you it's not just the East Coast.
Sure.
The West Coast here, some beautiful areas in Washington are on the list. We're talking far inland at way up into there where we have effects, and it's like almost to them. Again, see, they've colored these out. I have not. These are the specialists. These are the specialists that know they're going to lose their job if they do too much of a job of presenting the information to us. So these are, again, probably conservative estimates.
Let's go into the Bay Area. Let's see what that looks like.
San Francisco Bay Area. Now, I'm guessing that anything that touches water in the San Francisco Bay is valuable property.
Yeah.
And so when I think of stuff, I'm thinking that, I've heard some of these names. If I've heard the name, it's probably wealthy land. So let's look at Grizzly Island. This area looks like it might be expensive. I'm sorry. I have the water depth set for much earlier than 2040. Let's move it to 2040.
Oh.
I think I got that right. I think it's 2 feet. No,
And this
is
not your mock-up. This is from the NOAA website.
We're actually on the NOAA website right now. We are not using my speculative data. And we're just seeing these massive areas of major towns that our current structure, our way of life is built around. Even those of us out here in the rural area, we depend on the urban areas to be functioning well.
Right.
Their economies are doing well, and we do have a symbiosis between the urban and the rural that some people forget about. So if something is hurting you guys, it is hurting us as well. And at the same time, this inundation's happening. NOAA has released the.
Going to LA.
Oh, sorry. I have to look at it again. Why is it fuzzed?
Wow.
There's just so much in LA. Long Beach, does that mean anything?
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, this is the Port of Los Angeles. This is Long Beach Harbor. Can you go?
Yeah, and the actual port facilities, where the ships come, those areas are easier raised than a business district or a residential district. Right. When you raise a residential area, you're basically completely rebuilding it. Well, you are when you're redoing a port, but a lot of ports are parking lots and storage areas. Easy to move, kind of.
The thing that is so alarming about this is, as you said, this is from the NOAA website. This is the NOAA.gov website. You went into Coast here, and so this isn't some environmental agency that's being alarmist. I mean, they're deliberately paid to be conservative, and when you see these things, it's pretty concerning. This is 22 years from now, 21 years from now, which is not that far away. Not that far away. So, you think about where you were at in the 90s, it's not that far away. And then what you're saying is then Berkshire Hathaway, which is they're buying up land that you're speculating they're doing because they're anticipating this huge migration from all these population centers along the coast that are going to have to move inland because the coast will be inhabitable.
That was my hypothesis. Mm-hmm. And then I went to see, where can I find some data to support or reject that hypothesis? Mm-hmm. So I started saying, hey, I can go online to Berkshire Hathaway and they report how many homes they have in each state. Mm-hmm. And so I went and I made a table of all of the Berkshire Hathaway houses, state by state, as listed on their website. And it was thousands. Somewhere like 44,000 rental units in I can't remember what state it was. And then I went and I looked at the same state for census. And the census didn't show that many houses even being in the state. And I'm like, oh, great. Now I can't present any data and be ethical to you or your viewers if if the data isn't there. So it looks like the data is completely hiding it. It's as though Berkshire Hathaway has properties in every state except South Dakota, Alaska, and Guam. And but the numbers, none of them add up. So I can't use any of the data that I wanted to present today on that. So I thought, okay, what other data can I show? Well, we also have the NOAA prediction on the upcoming drought in the West again.
Okay.
And
Let's look at that.
also along the line, 100 years ago, from Austin to about this lake in North Dakota was called the 100th parallel. And that used to be the demarcation between the dry half of the United States and the wet half, the people that get ample water. That has moved 2 degrees. That is now at the Iowa border.
Really?
And so states west of that line from there's a line of states there, the western borders, from western Minnesota's border down to western Louisiana's border, are states that are not predicted to have ample water for agriculture.
That's pretty alarming.
So we have this inrush of, let's say, a majority of our seaboard states lose a significant portion of their population. They probably won't move just in state. They're probably going to say, I got to blow all my money and move. I'm moving to where the water is. And on the West Coast, it's just our weather sucks so much inland. You can't surf except on garbage piles here. But and the same on the West Coast, we are hitting these incredible amounts of dry weather that it's going to be difficult to supply water just to operate in.
This is the thing I've been talking about repeatedly on the show. It was 2 years ago that California was in the worst drought it had had in decades, and we just kind of got over it. But it's not like fixed in the long run for sure. And the thing that I've been talking about is why the problems that we're facing with the environment, the problems we're facing with jobs and the economy and all that thing, the solutions, in my opinion, are all tied together. We could put every American to work building a network of pipelines. We could be doing everything to help reverse climate change, and it's a big thing that I've been trying to talk about as much as I can. And I really, it's the statistic, and Lee Camp keeps talking about this, and it needs to be repeated by all of us and by anyone, is scientists predict that by 2030, if we don't do drastic change to reverse the climate disaster that we're in right now, by 2030, it'll be too late. So we really have less than 12 years to fix this. Otherwise, I mean, and this prediction map, this is literally going to be the tip of the iceberg compared to what other problems we can't even foresee from this kind of mass flooding. And when you have this kind of mass migration of people, there becomes an inherent security risk. There becomes all this stuff. I mean, and how are people eating if their whole town is flooded and they're not eating, they're working, and where do they go? Where are they going to live? Who's going to pay for that? Who's going to take care of that? I mean, so it's pretty serious and pretty alarming, and yet the solutions are very clear. But what is so disheartening for me right now is people within the Democratic Party still think that party can be saved. I was really disappointed that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez endorsed Cuomo for governor just because he's a Democrat. She should be backing the Green candidate, because Cuomo in the New York State Senate is part of that. I mean, he helped create that independent Democratic committee that's all these New York State Democrats that just line up with the Republican, because the state house and Senate in New York is mainly Republican. So it's going to take something bold. It's going to take something really bold, and I just, it's not going to happen within the Democratic Party. But
yeah, this week there's discussions on an El Nino returning, so this might change the forecast. Can I throw up the forecast on drought?
Please, throw it up. This is great, by the way, Mitch. This is one of the fancy things we get to do with the new studio and switching over to Zoom, is we get this cool. The information isn't cool, but the graphics, being able to have this interactivity is cool. All right, so let me just point this out to everybody. This is the U.S. Seasonal Drought Outlook. Again, this is coming from the NOAA website. Drought tendency during the valid period. Explain this map to everybody right here.
This is the U.S. government's official statement on where they believe drought will be for the next year. We're looking at Southern California, still extreme. And Portland, Portland, Oregon, at the state and the city mixed up. Oregon is a significant producer for fruits, and they are going to be in severe drought.
Well, that's the thing that's so frightening, is because Oregon is has huge agriculture. California, obviously, this is all. The Central Valley of California, of Southern California, produces like huge amounts of the entire country's produce. The grapes, the almonds, all that stuff comes in this area right here that is where the drought still persists.
And what is extreme is the portion of the American diet that consists of potatoes.
Yeah.
And we notice that the drought is beginning to stretch from northern Idaho down.
I mean, you look at this. I mean, this is most of Arizona, probably a third of New Mexico, all of Utah, most of Colorado, part of Nevada, at least half of California, most of Oregon, half of Washington, and probably whatever that is, a quarter of Idaho.
What also is, because we hear a lot about the droughts out west. Iowa is not the only state that produces grain and food.
Right.
Kansas produces a lot of wheat. Missouri produces a mixture of foods. It's not all St. Louis and Kansas City. They produce a lot of grain. They produce a lot of what Kansas or Iowa produce. They're kind of an in-betweener. And you'll notice that they've had a drought there.
Yeah.
And it's likely to improve. Some of it's likely to be removed as a drought. They're still going to be hurting.
Yeah, I mean, this to explain this to people. So this color, drought remains but improves. Drought removal likely. Okay, so there's still a drought. It might get better, but that's the it might get better.
Yeah, well, the entire productive part of Washington and Oregon is under drought.
And the other thing too that goes involved with drought. So now these are all wildfire zones. This is the West. This is all forest fire. So now with all this drought, it makes wildfires more likely, which, again, billions of dollars in damage, hurting crops, whatever else, homes, people losing their lives. The air quality gets worse.
Not only that, but those up in northern Montana and North Dakota, follow that big river down into South Dakota. That is the Missouri River.
This blue line right here. So this is Montana, and then we're going through North and South Dakota, which have a lot of drought.
And it's about a third of the water for the Mississippi River. This is what recharges our aquifers in Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, majority of it. So our new water supply is cut off. Basically, again, like I said, west of the 98th parallel, is going to be a serious condition. So I'm concerned. What happens when people don't want to buy a house in New York? What happens if people don't want to buy a house in South Texas, Louisiana, Georgia, Florida? How much value do people have tied up into their houses in these areas?
That's so most Americans. That is where most Americans have most of their wealth, is tied up in real estate.
Yeah, and I'm just guessing, like Alex says. Right now, when I went out to try, I said it. the numbers did not add up reasonable enough. But census-wise, we're looking at a third of the United States population along those coasts.
Yes. Yes. This is a third of the population all along here. Not
so
to
it's
if we're having it here too. So now, so we just looked at the flooding along these coasts here, and there's a drought there. So you're talking about a third of people all needing to move in here.
Yeah. First of all, we're not ready for you. We're not. But maybe this is a time what I thought I'd use this time for is to implore people to start thinking. We need to be thinking about climate change as being real. We need to be taking action now because we're not ready for you. And you need to get us ready for you. If the coastlines are going to need a place to live. I would guess that Iowa needs to take at least 20 million people from the coastline. I would guess that Illinois needs to take another 20 million.
If we're talking about a third of the let's just break it down. If we're talking about a third of America's population, that's 100 million people. 100 million people. Now, a lot of these states are not very populated, these bigger states.
No, it would change the population of Iowa. And I'm just, I'm throwing out a guess. We need experts to look at it. We need studies to think of it reasonable. So at this point, I am speculating. And I am speculating that 10 to 20 million people need to move to Iowa. And in order to do that, before they get here, we need cities with subways. We need reasonable means of moving the people in and still allowing us, because we're going to be one of the last places that can grow food. So we're going to need multi-layered facilities that still allow us to grow food and collect electricity from the ceiling, which means...
And where are these people going to work?
Yeah, and what are they going to do? And what are they going to do?
And that many people, there's all these other things. So if 10 million new people move into Iowa, okay, you need more fire department, you need more electric lines, you need more police department, you need more trash removal, you need more schools, you need more libraries, you're going to need more jails, you're going to need, what?
You name it. We need to be thinking about the infrastructure and getting ready for it. We need to be plotting the change. And it's going to be just like a hockey stick, just like with the climate change, with the carbon dioxide level. First, people aren't going to believe it, and they're going to resist. And a few people are going to get here, and they're going to take advantage of the latecomers. And where does the owner of Berkshire Hathaway live?
Omaha.
Yeah. You wonder why? Now, you are a vegan. Where is Paul McCartney's vegan food production center?
I don't know.
Minnesota. So, again, I try to go for hard data. That's hard data. You can look up where he lives. You can look up Paul McCartney's place that he invested in that came up with not dogs.
Well, let me, as we wrap up here, what specific things would you implore people to start doing that are watching this video right now, that are getting this information, depending on wherever they live? Maybe they live in the middle of the country, maybe they live on the coast, maybe they live in another country that's facing similar issues, because rising sea levels isn't only going to hit North America. This is going to affect every country with a coast.
Yeah, it is. And, places like Kentucky are going to be a nice place to live. Places like North Central, or not North Central, it already sucks. Central Illinois are going to be places that people are going to go. They're going to still be close to Chicago and other places. Mm-hmm. But my guess is there's going to be new cities popping up, because the new cities that pop up are going to be organized, hopefully, and probably more of a gain. Because, if you can go somewhere and take a train at 300 kilometers per hour and get to another location easily, cheaply, it's going to be a lot of cities, I would guess, that are somewhat smaller than the cities people came from. and the smaller ones are going to get bigger. The bigger ones are going to get smaller. And we're going to be aggregating the usage. You're not going to see one field concentrated in one town anymore.
Right. Right.
So
well, I guess what I would say is, again, it's why we need to not acquiesce to, incremental victories and centrism and all this other nonsense. We need to really fight hard because this is coming.
And we really need to acknowledge the bravery of NOAA.
Yeah.
To let this out. And
this isn't the Sierra Club. This isn't the World Wildlife Federation. This is part of the U.S. Department of Commerce that's putting these out. So, well, Mitch, I really appreciate you sharing this information with us. It's very eye-opening, and hopefully it's more information for anyone out there who's got any friends and family that don't think that climate change is real. Send them to this website. Send them to this website. And have them go, here's what the United States government with its current president is putting out. This is the reality. And ask them all the questions we just asked. Where are all these people going to go? What's going to happen? What are we going to do?
Now, on that first website we went on, there's a slider on the left side. If you go into information, it'll tell you how to set that for how high the water is going to be for 2010, 2020, 2030, 2040, 2060, and give you some ideas of where to play with. And the most shocking thing was for me was that inundation is going to affect all the way to Albany, New York.
Right.
And well, thanks for your time.
Well, Mitchell, thank you. Bring your face back on screen so people can say goodbye to you. We don't want them just looking, saying goodbye to a map.
Well, you see, when I see the screen, I'm not seeing that. So yes, and apologize for the mess. Strange glow in the background. Just don't pay attention to that.
Don't worry about it, my friend. Really appreciate you doing this and giving us this information. You always give me and all the viewers so much to think about. You always bring so much research and information to it. I really appreciate it, man. You make this show better by the information you're giving us and really proving out your sources. You're not just like finding some meme and then getting hysterical about it. So I very much appreciate that. You, my friend, are a true political vigilante.
So, all right. Get out there and just.
All right, everybody, thanks for watching. And of course, for $25 a month, you can do cool videos like this if you go to patreon.com/Graham Elwood. Also, all my tour dates are at grahamelwood.com. All those links are below. I just started putting videos on Steemit. So I just got a Bitcoin wallet, another way to help support the show. If you want to support me via cryptocurrency, I will put that wallet in the links below in the videos coming up. So thank you so much. And remember, we're all making Gotham great again.